Hello, everyone. It's Liz, live from the Derry Public Library, specifically the History Room. Welcome to Thursday, and today is Hulu and Prime recommendations. Um, I think these are the ones I'm going to stick with, unless I get HBO Max, which you probably won't. Although knowing me, I'll probably just get Shudder in the Criterion Channel, and oof, I don't know if y'all want my Shudder recommendations, unless I do a specifically horror themed program. Anywho, on to Hulu recommendations. The first is a documentary from Macedonia, which came out last year. It is called Honeyland, and it is about this one woman who practices like a more ancient art of beekeeping and sort of the environmental, in some cases, social challenges she comes up against. If you were a beekeeper, I know a lot of people keep bees in New Hampshire. It's a fascinating documentary, and fun fact, it actually pulled a double nomination at the Oscars this past year. It was nominated not only for Best Documentary, but Best Foreign Language Feature. Unfortunately, it didn't win either of them. I mean, Parasite was in the foreign language feature category, and that was just going to win. I think that was the foregone conclusion of this year is Parasite's winning Best Foreign Language Feature. But still, if you want a good documentary about an art of beekeeping and also some of the environmental problems that are kind of coming with it right now, this is a very important documentary. Um, Also, the other two movies that I have on Hulu are both sports movies. I've said before, I am not much of a sports person, but it doesn't mean I will never watch anything in that genre, especially if it's good. So the first I'm going to recommend is Creed 2, which is a spin-off. I kind of feel like spin-off cheapens it saying that, but of the Rocky franchise. I actually think it is a spiritual sequel more than a spin-off. So in 2015, um, we had Creed, which I think took a lot of people by surprise as being very good. It was about the son of Apollo Creed who wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and be a boxer, much to the chagrin of his mom and even Rocky Balboa telling him don't do it. And it actually turned out to be a great movie about legacy, about friendship, about, the standard sports tropes of believing in yourself, but it was also just a very well made, well directed movie. So Creed 2, I think, follows up on that really well. Michael B. Jordan gives an absolutely great performance. It definitely plays a little bit more on the Rocky 4 side, which, don't get me wrong, I love Rocky 4. That movie is ridiculous. But rather than being campy like Rocky 4, it actually is serious. And it, again, once again, talks about legacy because you see Ivan Drago's character and how he fared after the end of Rocky 4. And again, I just think these are overall a good continuation of the Rocky story and good sports movies in their own right. You also have Warrior, which was recommended to me by somebody, and also didn't help that one of my crushes, Tom Hardy's in it. I'll watch that. But it's about two brothers who do UFC, ultimate fighting, mixed martial arts stuff, and there's definitely not a good relationship with their dad, who's Nick Nolte, and again, I would say that on paper, Warrior seems like a fairly standard movie, but it just shows what you can do with someone who takes this stuff seriously, who decides, okay, I'm going to actually craft characters. I'm going to get good actors in this and some good directing. I think the fight scenes are incredibly well directed. There's a lot of good tension in there. And it works well as a dramatic movie as well. So I would recommend Warrior if you need a sports movie fix. Moving on to Prime, we're going to go a little some classics today. Fun with Dick and Jane, not the one with Jim Carrey, but the one with Jane Fonda. It's always kind of weird to me to see Jane Fonda in comedy roles because I think I first saw her in stuff like On Golden Pond, Agnes of God, Clute, but seeing that, oh yeah, she's also really good at being funny. And of course, you look at her, what she became as an actress. Remember, she started out as Barbarella. I mean, definitely interesting career, but unlike the Jim Carrey Tay Leone movie, Fun with Dick and Jane, the original, was actually kind of about the anxiety that a lot of people are having in America right now, or at the time. And kind of right now, the idea of, yeah, we've got it made, we've got money. What if one day it all just goes away? What do we do? I don't feel that the remake really addresses that, whereas I think the original film does tap into those anxieties that were starting to really surface at the mid to tail end of the 70s. And so I would say go back and give it a watch. And, two great performers in the main. Also, Ted Kotcheff directed it, which he's had an interesting career with movies. There is a movie that I saw of his that it's not on Prime right now, but it was called Split Image, which is about a kid getting out of a cult. Fantastic movie. If it ever comes back on Prime, I will let you know. Speaking of classics, The Terminator. The OG Terminator is on Prime. This is James Cameron's introduction to us. It wasn't his first feature. I think his first feature was a Piranha movie. But this is the movie that really was like, hi, I'm arriving. This is what I'm here to do. This is my style and my vision. And this was also Arnold's real arrival. He had had movies before this, but this was, I think, the first movie that really saw what Arnold could do and made a good use of it. I mean, not that this is all Arnold can do. I actually think he's a very funny actor, and I think when he tries, if he's got a good role, he's actually, I think, a decent dramatic actor. I just watched Terminator Dark Fate, which I think is a pretty good movie, and Arnold's one of the best parts in it. But if you've never seen The Terminator, I would go watch it, and it's far more horror than I think a lot of people remember it as. They remember it mostly as an action movie and a sci-fi film, and yes, those are components to this, but if we look at the general plot of this movie, it is a woman being ruthlessly pursued by a killer. It's almost a slasher movie, in a weird way. That's why it works. It works on so many levels and so many genres. In terms of new classics, Election, Alexander Payne's film, is now on Prime again. This is with Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon, also based on a great book by Tom Perrotta, and it's an interesting look at electoral politics via the lens of a high school. It is biting, it is satirical, but it's never mean. And I think that is why this movie has endured, because it is saying something, but it's also not screaming it in your face. And it's making points, but not beating you over the head with it. This is also, I will still say, one of Reese Witherspoon's best roles. She is not an actress that I like as a dramatic actress, but I think she is amazing in terms of a comedic actress. And I would still say her two absolute best roles, I would say, are this and Legally Blonde. Those were the two movies that really just used her perfectly. Or I think she played the role perfectly as well. But yeah, if you've never seen Election, take the time to watch it. It is absolutely fantastic. And, political cinema is hit or miss, because in many cases it is so tied to the time. And I think Election, whilst being very 90s in many ways, still manages to hold up and carry over 20 years later. Up next, a documentary. So this is called Betty Davis, They Say I'm Different. And now this is not Betty Davis, the actress Betty Davis. This is Betty Davis, a musician, who is, I didn't know who she was until I read this graphic novel called Brazen, which talked about a lot of sort of unsung female heroes. And she was a pioneer of funk music, of sort of like a women's liberation, owning her sexuality in the 70s, which was fairly taboo at the time, or in some cases still kind of is. But she really never got her due in music. She wasn't that well known. So I am recommending this so people can kind of have what I did when I read that book. I'm like, wow, I've never heard of this woman. She sounds great. She sounds awesome. So I am very glad that there's a documentary that people can now learn about her. And the final movie of the day, don't laugh at the title, it is much better than it sounds. It is called Attack of the Mushroom People, but in Japanese it's Matango. So this was something a couple weekends ago we were looking for, is there any just Japanese monster movies on Prime? And yes there are, and yes they're wonderful. But then I saw this and I'm like, wait a minute, this title sounds familiar. Oh hey, it's directed by Ishiro Honda, who is the man who directed the original Godzilla. And I watched it, and rather than getting a very, clunky monster movie, I got a very good, very bleak look at alienation, at people turning against each other, and kind of succumbing to madness. And then I realized, I have heard of this before, because I remember, reading something about Steven Soderbergh saying this movie scared the heck out of him as a kid and he wanted to remake it. So this is basically it's kind of Gilligan's Island meets a horror movie. So a bunch of people go out on a boat. The boat gets shipwrecked. There's a lot of strange mushrooms on this island, and all of a sudden, people who at first start saying we have to work together to survive start turning on each other. Um, and if you eat these mushrooms, it kind of heightens those bad qualities. So it's got a body snatcher vibe to it, if that's what you're into. And again, kind of like the original Night of the Living Dead, this doesn't have an uplifting ending. It's almost this idea of people are going to succumb to their worst instincts and we're all going to become monsters. It's a little Lord of the Flies, if anything, but it's well acted. It's genuinely got a really creepy soundtrack. Some of the visual effects and sound effects are scary. And I was like, man, I really wish I'd seen this sooner. And I mean, it actually didn't get a US release over here because I think a lot of the distributors thought, oh, we thought this was going to be another monster movie, not a horror drama. And so it didn't get a lot of play over here. And of course, a title like Attack of the Mushroom People doesn't help its legitimacy. And over in Japan, I learned it actually had some controversy because some of the effects of the people getting infected by the mushrooms looked akin to people who survived Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the disfiguration they faced. And well, if we know anything about Ishiro Honda's career, he certainly has addressed the effects of nuclear war and fallout before. So I would say check this out. It is definitely my hidden gem of the day. So yeah, don't let the title fool you. It is a genuinely good movie. So hopefully you'll check some of these out, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.